What do you make of this case and race's role in it?
Well, I think the case, even on its face, is very troubling, because are we now going to say that a private citizen, no law enforcement, no calls to law enforcement, can get up on a subway or anywhere else and put somebody in a chokehold and kill them because they perceived in their own minds something that no one else said that they saw, and that was a threat?
Well, that's not true at all. I love how he's just ignoring the witnesses there. Al Sharpton, the Reverend, he is as much of a reverend as Hunter Biden is not a drug addict. Welcome back to the show. Your lovable curmudgeon here with you. So the Reverend Al Sharpton, he's like, well, no one else came out and said that. Well, that's not true, because witnesses were already speaking out. In fact, the New York Post was talking to some of them. One woman had said, one in particular, she did not want her name out. She said he was a hero. And she said Neely was walking around saying, I don't care, I'll take a bullet, I'm going to go to jail. He said that he's going to kill the people on the train. He said, I will kill you, I don't care, I'll take a bullet, I'll go to jail. And then he said, I'll kill a mother unredacted too. So she said that Penny did not initially even engage until it got really bad. And the other thing too, contrary to what Al Sharpton, you know, the guy who made velour tracksuits popular before Paris Hilton with Juicy Couture. The other thing is that he was this dude, Jordan Neely, who had not done a Michael Jackson impersonation for over 10 years by this time. And that's the other thing the media is not telling you. It's been over a decade since he was doing the Michael Jackson impersonations. So they're showing you literally 11-year-old photos in the media. It goes all the way back, I think, to like 2013, one of the subreddits. They were warning people. He was so known as a violent person that there was a thread on Reddit where regular subway passengers were warning each other about that stop, that platform, that guy. For years with photos. And interestingly enough, some of the photos that they use that came out in that thread are some of the ones the media is using talking about Jordan Neely in different stories. So for Al Sharpton to say that no one else said that, he's lying. I mean, but is that new for Al Sharpton? I mean, is that new for him? I mean, this was the guy who stoked a massacre at Freddy's Fashion Mart in Harlem. He was the guy who sparked an anti-Semitic riot. Got a guy killed. Remember that? The Freddy's Fashion Mart attack in December 1995. 8 people were killed when a gunman seized hostages at Freddy's Fashion Mart, set the building on fire. And that was because Al Sharpton was mad. Remember Al Sharpton, the guy who's now going off on Daniel Penny? It's because Al Sharpton was mad. He was mad over the Jewish tenant who operated Freddy's Fashion Mart because the tenant was going to evict the longtime sub-tenant. It was a record store, and it was called The Record Shack, and it was owned by a guy named Sekulu Sange. And so Sharpton led the protests outside the store. For weeks and weeks and weeks, he led the protests outside of the store for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And he told the crowd that had assembled outside of the store, quote, "We will not stand by and allow them to move this brother so some white interloper can expand his business," end quote. And it was about that time one of the activists who was involved in the protests outside of the store entered the little 38 and flammable liquid. He made all the customers leave. Then he set the store on fire and he stood at the only exit. Police officers arrived and he shot at them to keep everybody out. He shot 4 customers when they were trying to leave the store. And 2 hours later, when firefighters were actually able to enter the store, that's when they found that there were 7 store employees who were from smoke inhalation, and the guy had killed himself. And then they found 3 of the victims in a back room, And then there was some more who were sealed away in the basement. Now, the only thing that Sharpton ever said that he felt regret for was using the phrase white interloper. That was it. And so now he's out there going off on Daniel Penny. That's not the only thing. I mean, let's not forget the Brawley case. Good heavens, where he's just outright accusing people of something they didn't do. So Al Sharpton incited the firebombing of a Jewish store in Harlem. Caused the deaths of 7 people. I don't include Roland James Smith, the murderer, in that. And it was a rent dispute. That was it. They were renovating the building, and they had every right to say, well, maybe we could bring in a tenant that could, earn more price. Things are becoming more expensive. Everybody has that right. So now Al Sharpton's out there saying this stuff, this nonsense. A private citizen can just get up on a subway and put someone in a chokehold. Let's go ahead and ignore Jordan Neely's violent threats to the other passengers, and more than one have come forward. That's the only woman who actually talked to the New York Post. Let's ignore that. Let's ignore the fact that just a couple of days prior, Jordan Neely, according to witnesses, tried pushing a woman onto the tracks. Let's ignore how he already had an active warrant out for felony assault. He punched a 67-year-old woman right in her face, broke her nose, and her orbital bone. Let's ignore that. Let's ignore his 42 priors. Let's ignore the fact that he was so violent and unpredictable that Redditors had a 10-year-long thread on the guy. And let's ignore the fact that his autopsy came out, his autopsy report, toxicology, he was on drugs. Let's ignore all that. Oh, because the family, who has not been there this entire time, don't sit here and tell me about crazy people on drugs and families. I've had crazy people on drugs in my family. And I'm not even going to hear it from people. You don't have to have money either to get involved and to get engaged. They're on the street because people just don't. I mean, this guy was apparently on the street for over a decade this bad. Where was the family? He had been court-ordered into a rehabilitation, a mental health facility. He left after 2 days, so that warrant was, and that was part of his punishment for punching that elderly woman. So he left 2 days after, and that kicked the warrant into effect. Let's ignore all of that. We're just going to act like Daniel Penny. We're just going to act like he just up and decided, well, there's a guy, I'm going to go kill him. They make it sound like Daniel Penny was mad because Jordan Neely was a Michael Jackson impersonator. And like I said, he hadn't done that in like 10 years. What gets me about this, and this is the disgustingness of somebody like Al Sharpton. What gets me is that they're rushing to present this picture of a man who is victimized by, apparently everybody except his own family and himself. I mean, Al Sharpton proves that even the devil can quote scripture. I have to question the spiritual wisdom and health of people who sit here and promote this kind of bunk narrative. Oh, he just decided to ruin his life that day. I mean, they're going to sit here and assume this of Penny. Penny doesn't have a record. I mean, golly, the video shows him still thrashing about. Other passengers were trying to assist him. Here's another thing to keep in mind. Penny was trying to apparently contain Neely until law enforcement arrived. This is the restorative justice running rampant in New York. They go after people who want to protect themselves. This is the same city where lawyers argued that police had no obligation to protect a subway hero who subdued a killer and was injured because the cop hid because he thought that the killer was armed. I don't know if you're familiar with this story. I've written about it before. It had to do with this man named Joseph Lozito, a Long Island dad. He was stabbed 7 times trying to subdue this madman on the subway. And when he went to court, the city argued that police had no obligation to protect him. Let's not forget Joseph or Jose Alba. Jose Alba, remember the bodega owner, or Bogota if you're Jill Biden? I mean, he's on video. A guy's trying to kill him on video. He defends himself, and Alvin Bragg still charges him. And it was only after massive amounts of outrage did they drop those charges. Hell, didn't they have him at Rikers? Didn't they put Alba in Rikers? You've got to be kidding me. Vigilantism isn't self-defense, but this was self-defense with Penny. But see, New York City encourages this. They encourage vigilantism because they refuse to keep violent career criminals off the streets. And so when someone's forced to defend themselves or others, then they go and punish those people. I'm really curious because we don't know the charges with the grand jury. We only know that Penny had been previously arrested for second-degree manslaughter. I'm very curious as to whether or not the grand jury took the city's culpability into question when they were making this determination. Listen to this. This audio soundbite 9. Here's Al Sharpton, Freddie's Fashion Mart velour tracksuit wearing, devil can quote scripture guy himself. Listen to this.
By the family's own admission, he Neely had mental health issues that we need to deal with people in the streets, that because Neely was having a meltdown on the train. He was not threatening anyone.
That's
He
not
was
what
saying
witnesses
he
said.
was ready to die. He was ready to go to jail. So we've got to deal with the mental health issue.
That's not what witnesses say. You can't deal with the mental health issue when your whole health system is in a boondoggle anyway. I just had the headline yesterday about with Kathy Hochul, the $1.6 billion that taxpayers are going to be on the hook for because nobody can spend money, right? To say nothing of all the money that Bill de Blasio and his wife lost when they started that program to go after and try to remedy the mental health problem in New York City, and all that money just dissipated into the ether. Where did that go? Please. Where was Al Sharpton? Where were any of these people for this guy before this happened? Where were any of these people for the 42 priors? Where were any of these people after he punched that woman in the face? I didn't see Al Sharpton coming out for that elderly woman that got hit in the face, but oh my gosh, he smells $1, and here he comes. He didn't come out for that woman. He didn't come out for the woman that he's accused of being trying to push on the tracks by witnesses days prior. They didn't come out for Penny himself. Until they can use him as the cause celeb. And then all of a sudden, there everybody is with their PR firms and their spokespeople and their minders and their new social media accounts and their new narratives and their new friends in the media, so that they can sit here and launder this stupid narrative that impugns the character of a guy who had no record, who served his country admirably, and was called to defend himself and others because the people who run New York City don't do a damn thing for the taxpayers. Nothing. They don't protect them. They don't keep criminals off the streets. They force everyone to be at the prey of the restorative justice that indulges that criminality. Also, they can sit here and run on a record of, look how good we are to people. Look how nice we are to the criminal at the expense of your livelihoods and security. And how in the hell do these people keep getting elected? I don't know. No, Daniel Penny defended himself. The end. Everyone out there going after him, they smell money. That's what this is all about. Own it. Shameful.